Hello, my name is Bakardjieva. I'm professor and chair in Communication and Media Studies at the University of Calgary in Alberta, Canada. Today my presentation is on my paper entitled Home Implosion, Digital Media and the Reinvention of the Private Sphere. What is home? That's where I start. French philosopher Michel de Certeau and his co-authors, writing in the late 20th century, attempt to capture the way their time and culture understood the meaning of home. We still hear echoes of this understanding, and yet it is slipping farther and farther away. Home for them is a protected place at one's disposal where the pressure of the social body on the individual does not prevail, where the plurality of stimuli is filtered, or in any case ought to be. Home, of course, is a complex construct that has different meanings as a component of various social theories that have evolved over time. Philosopher Agnes Heller speaks from a phenomenological position when she describes home as an awareness of a fixed point in space, a firm position from which we proceed and to which we return in due course. Going home should mean returning to that firm position which we know, where we feel safe, and where our emotional relationships are at their most intense. For their part, psychologists Csikszentmihalyi and Rockburg-Hulton offer a definition of home that emphasizes its role as a site of identity formation. For them, the home is a space for action and interaction in which one can develop, maintain, and change one's identity. The home is a shelter for those persons and objects that define the self. Feminist scholar Bell Hooks draws attention to the political importance of the home. She forcefully asserts the role of the home in the symbolic production and self-reproduction of segregated Black people, particularly women. Historically, she writes, African American people believed that the construction of a home place, however fragile and tenuous, the slave hut, the wooden shack, had a radical political dimension. Despite the brutal reality of racial apartheid, of domination, one's home place was the one site where one could freely confront the issue of humanization, where one could resist. Domestic space has been a critical site for organizing and for forming political solidarity in the context of Black liberation struggles. Along a different line of analysis, political economists look at the home as an autonomous consumer unit and resource system, and increasingly as a production unit. Every new addition of household technology, writes Christian Kumar in 1997, from microwave oven to video cassette recorders, increased the goods and services produced in the home. Instead of a service economy, as were the prevailing ways at the time, Kumar suggested that we were moving toward a do-it-yourself and self-service economy, and user-generated content was not yet on the horizon. Why am I citing at length work done by others, and for that matter, work that sounds dated, quaint, and maybe even somewhat naive to today's audiences? I'm doing it because it allows me to draft a map of several characteristic dimensions of the home as the heart of the private sphere. What I can do next, then, is to trace along these dimensions the tremors and transformations that have rocked the home with the advent of new media technologies. To come directly to the point, I'm asking, do activities, relationships, and roles in the home remain fundamentally the same, or do they significantly change over time in the context of digital media? Communication research has shown how the arrival of different media technologies has punctured and eroded the already porous boundary delineating the home as a private sphere. From the startling ring of the telephone that allowed strangers to interrupt family dinners and conversations, to the mobile privatization and seclusion from the public world that the joint forces of the automobile and television quickly solidified, to the intricate reconfiguration of domestic routines and relationships around the new hearth, the television set, followed by the advancing personalization of media use in the home, moving from the bedroom to the irresistible pull of the mobile phone that often makes those same family dinners feel ghostly. Digital media have carried the erosion of the boundary between the public and the private realms further than anyone would have imagined. The honored abode of private life, the home, has been penetrated by gadgets and practices that decimate its introvert and intimate character. I ask whether the direction of these developments is inexorably determined by the technological and business forces, or is there some room left for human agency, critical deliberation, and emancipation? My investigation then is organized around 5 themes derived from the map I charted above. These themes are space, self, politics, labor, and data. Under the rubric of space, I discuss the retailoring of home space so that it can accommodate the various new tasks that have been piled on it. Work, education, socialization, entertainment, the list goes on. Under this rubric, I reflect also on the experiences of presence and introduce the concepts of polytopia and flight of mind. The underpinnings of these reflections are phenomenological and cultural. When I take up the topic of self, my focus is on identity formation and the numerous digital molding mechanisms nowadays involved in its production. I consider the socialization processes that take place in online gaming communities, influencer Instagram pages and Reddit boards, among many others. I highlight the incursion of stimuli and various kinds of pressures, from peer to commercial, that defies the protectedness once associated with home. I argue that digital technologies have emerged as par excellence technologies of self that would have stunned even Michel Foucault himself had he lived to encounter them. As I turn to politics, I raise questions about the possibility for home becoming a place for resistance and emancipation vis-à-vis the manipulative apparatus that digital media have become. But I also underscore the inventive ways in which motivated users have been able to subvert this apparatus to build collective identities and organize civic and political action using home as a base. Home labor is a different species in the digital media environment. It is not about cooking and the meal and doing the laundry. It is not only and predominantly telework, which of course is huge and growing, generating more and more work hours, most typically for women, onto the sweatshop of the home. The do-it-yourself economy has swept our social relationships, knowledge, interests, and creative impulses into the mill of communicative, according to Jody Dean, or surveillance, according to Shoshana Zuboff, capitalism. As Amazon, Google, and Facebook value is going up on the stock market, someone, somewhere, is doing the labor that fuels that rise. This someone is us, and the place is home. How is our own labor coming back to entrench and control us through the streams of data we produce in the process? The political economy of communication has cast light on these processes, and every home-based user needs to take note. Finally, we come to the COVID-19 quarantine. Well, just the trends catch so far have flared up to the sky. This is in fact the home imploding. Implosion, Wikipedia says, concentrates matter and energy. In it, objects are destroyed by collapsing or being squeezed in on themselves. But look around. Our homes are still standing, our intimate relations more important than ever. our invisible labor finally coming to the fore, becoming visible, our ways of socializing reconsidered, coming down to this coveted hug that we want to give grandmother but still can't. And this means that we are resilient enough. But it will take some flight of imagination and effort of will to look at all this and realize that we cannot be happy when we allow things to happen to us, even fun things and fascinating media. That to be at home should be about being at the helm, and that some practices learned or observed in the public sphere, like rational critical debate and collective deliberation, need to be imported and established into the private sphere to which we return and which we call home. Thank you.